James Floyd, yeah, I have known you, I don't know how many years now, and I've known you first as the Jefferson Street Poet, and then I got to know you as a friend. And the initial time, the initial meeting of you, I don't even recall it. I just recall something about it. There was something about, we were in a living room and you were reciting a poem. And I immediately had a connection to you because, of course, I write poetry as well. Right. And the reason I wanted to talk with you today is it has to do with poetry. Poetry is a vehicle for taking us back to that place in ourselves that is at the core of who we are, the core of communication and getting out what is truly our authentic voice. And I hear that term sometimes. Recently someone referred to it as mother tongue. And I think when the first time I heard you recite a poem, I thought, he knows his mother tongue. Can you talk a little bit about how you began the whole journey toward writing poetry?
Okay. Well, I think that it started at birth, really. And I'm not just saying that. I remember, and I write about this in the trilogy that I remember one Christmas, our parents worked real hard, and we had bicycles and BB guns and all kind of stuff. But I remember one Christmas, I got a Parker refillable cartridge ink pen and some notebook paper. And I remember just being fascinated at the look of that ink on the page. And I wrote my name over and over and over and over. I think that was the beginning of the love. Now, why my father chose to give me that, I don't know. I think parents intuit a lot of things, you know. But the journey went on as I became a teenager and in my early 20s. Certain decisions I made led to me being incarcerated for 5 years. And I could have gone either way, but while I was incarcerated, I met some people who pointed me in the direction of the writing. I'd not been aware of any black writers, and I met a group of people, Bill Allen, one of them, who turned me on. I know one of the first books was by Don L. Lee, From Plan to Plan. He's Haki Madabuti now. But also Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. They turned me on to those books. I read those books, and they would give us books, we'd read them, and then we'd take them to our cell and read them, and then we'd go discuss them on the yard. Right. Okay, and that was fascinating. And I started writing. I started really focusing on my writing. I'd written all along. My daughter told me that she first realized that I wasn't coming home after I'd been incarcerated a couple of years, when her mother told her to take all my notebooks to the dumpster and throw them away. I had been writing all that time, but I never shared it with anybody. My feelings. I'd love to read. I had always loved to read. But the people I hung out with, you just don't go up to, hey man, check this poem out, you know, now. They'll rob you, you know. Right. But anyway, prison freed me to be my true self. And I took a class. We had to take a friend, my charge partner, he'll remain nameless. He didn't get it. He kept doing what we were doing. He committed suicide in prison when he went back. He kept saying, man, he was a tutor at the school. And he said, man, why don't you take college classes, man? You know, you read all the time and you write. You need to take college classes. And I said, oh, man, for what? You know, so I get a job, you know, work for somebody? No, that ain't me, you know. And that was my mindset.
Right.
So one day he said, man, you been in the Army, haven't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, you can get your GI Bill, get money, and send money to Linda. That was my daughter's mother. And that's the only reason I went. Mm-hmm. So I could get the GI money and send some money home. And you had to take a full load of credits in order to get your GI Bill. And there's one class I had to take that the only class available to make up my full load. It was by a guy named John Alford. I think I've heard he's Dr. John Alford now, but he was John Alford. He taught English, 101 or something there. We studied the Romantic poets, I believe it was, Byron, Shelley, and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't want to take his class because he had a reputation of being very, very difficult. He had been known to put murderers out of his class for disrupting it, you know. Mm-hmm. And he was a little guy. He had a beetle haircut. He wore a tweed jacket. He was the picture of a nerd, okay? And Dr. Alford, I apologize, but it's true. And looking back now, he's one of the only people I've ever been intimidated by, really. Mm-hmm. That first night in class, it was like I walked back to my cell about 2 feet off the ground. It was just unbelievable. I realized now that he had created an atmosphere because he loved what he was doing. He wanted to be there, doing it, and it came through. And the class was great. When you got classes in prison, guys are hungry for stuff like that. You know, I mean, just eat it up. It's like being free for that hour, you know. And so midway, we were on the quarter system. He said, I want you class, I want you to deliver a paper finding a common denominator among all the poets we've studied thus far, you know. And I'm not just saying this. I was kind of a real crook. I had a typewriter. I was the only person in the prison who had a typewriter in the cell, you know. I don't know how my mom got that typewriter to me, but she got me a typewriter. Mm-hmm. An old Royal typewriter.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right. Well, anyway, I worked hard. I typed it up, and it was like being given a present, you know, this assignment, you know. It was something to do to get me out of my mind and out of the prison, you know. And so I turned it in, and I had to wait for the next class, and the next class came, and the papers was folded. He didn't give it to us flat out. It was folded lengthwise, and he handed me my paper. And when he handed me the paper, he said, "I'm not going to dignify this paper with a grade, Mr. Floyd." And I opened it with no grade on the paper, you know, and I was hurt and mad and embarrassed, and you know, so I delved into it. Like I said, with these guys in the class, we're all serious. I got in discussions with the guys, and we talked, and I wrote another paper, typed it up, and turned it in, and he handed it to me without any comment. There was no grade. So I was going to do normally what I normally do. I was going to quit, you know.
Right. That's what we did.
Yeah, I was going to quit, you know, and blame him, you know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that day before the class, and I don't remember how many drafts it took. It didn't take a lot. Mm-hmm. It didn't take a lot. I don't want you to have to bleep, so I'm just going to say, I said to myself, if I'm going to write what I think about these guys, they were all crazy. I mean, Shelley Brown, those guys were crazy. You know,
bona fide, yeah.
Bona fide crazy. The newspaper wrote a thing saying they were glad when Shelley died, right? But anyway, I wrote this poem titled "Poets Are Crazy" and turned it in. And the class had moved ahead on other things. I was still stuck there. Mm-hmm. And I almost didn't go back to class because I was so embarrassed. I turned in a poem, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was just, and during the class, it looked like he kept looking at me with a twinkle in his eye, and I thought, he's laughing at me. And he thinks I'm crazy for real, you know. And I must be crazy. I turned in a, you know. Mm-hmm. And when he passed the papers out, I sat for a long time and I finally looked at it and it was an A over an A minus. I had a misspelled word. And he asked to speak to me after class. And he said, Mr. Floyd, your other papers, you were telling me what you thought I wanted to hear, or what you thought I knew, or what. He said, I didn't need you to tell me what I know. I already know what I. He said, this paper, you told me what you thought. And you told me very eloquently, and that's why I gave you the grade. So that reinforced some self-confidence, I guess. Mm-hmm. May I share the poem?
Yes, please.
Okay. Poets are crazy. Poets are crazy. They attempt to reach past the thin veil of this reality and touch with their pencils that core of beauty, which is the essence of everything. They always fail. Yet they try again and again, like a moth in its efforts to reach the flame. Upon an ocean of facts, amid waves of impossibilities, they float imprisoned inside transparent bubbles of dreams. And it's so hard for poets to make it among sane people because they're always wondering while everyone else is satisfied, always frightened while others feel secure. And the only scars they have to show for the wounds that caused them so much pain are their poems. Poets are always laughing while others cry, crying as others laugh, and each poem that causes them to die is a breath of life. Each breath of life kills them. Poets know no language they can call upon to make what they feel understood, but people call them great and immortalize them for their inability to communicate. All poets are crazy because they know that as a result of any fame or success they might achieve in this world, they probably fail to accomplish anything. And every time someone says to them, I understood that poem, they say to themselves, how could you have understood that poem? It wasn't written for you to understand it, but yourself. Then you would know how much I love you, though we've never met before this, and that would cause you to cry for me as I bleed for you. For only in a mixture of my blood and your tears will there ever be found understanding. So that makes poets crazy people who step on broken glass to keep from walking on the flowers in their efforts to find something that will empty them as it fills them. That's it.
And I totally get what an amazing teacher.
Yeah.
Who knew? Yeah, and
excuse me.
You had I've heard you recite that before, and it absolutely goes to the core of what we're talking about. When we find ourselves, imagine if everybody were able to get to that place where they could go all the way to the core and say, now I really know myself. What difference it would make as far as how we view the world, how we view one another.
Right. It would be wonderful if I could stay there.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we get to do that.
I think we have to come out and deal with this reality, and that from time to time we go to wherever that place is that our muse exists, and we take the dictation that they give. You know. Yeah.
You know, I've heard people speak of their muse, and then some people will talk about hearing the voice of ancestors.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about going back to that mother tongue, the part in us that lets us get to what is real. And, you know, the world as it is today, I look at the amount of marketing, the amount of, you know, the billboards, the advertisement out there, and this whole notion of I need to see what you're doing so I know what I'm supposed to do. And when your teacher had it right all along, you had to find your voice and your own thoughts. And as long as I'm trying to be you, I don't ever get to figure out who me is.
Right. Well, you know, I think that our educational system, and I'm not knocking it, I think in a way I am knocking it, because it's designed to a certain extent to tell us what we can do and what we can't do, what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Some people, like yourself and quite a few other people I'm fortunate enough to know, survive the educational system. Had I gone to school to learn to write poetry, you would never have heard Poets Are Crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Had I not met a teacher like Dr. Alford, you would never have heard Poets Are Crazy. Like I say, a series of coincidences that are too coincidental to be coincidence. All these things, you know, I stumbled my way here to be sitting in front of this camera with you. You know, I think that I have to always remember that it's not me. You know, I'm not the one who is. I'm only an instrument. You know. Oftentimes, somebody will come up to me and say, "Well, I really like that poem." And well, doing an interview, you know, I'm as honest with you as I can be now, you know. But you know, somebody will say, "I like that poem," and I can't say, "Well, you know, I really just, you know, it came to me," you know.
Right.
I was doing an interview, and the interviewer asked me something, and I said, "Well, you know, I've never decided to write a poem and sat down and wrote it, you know, unless I was taking a class in school, assignments, yeah. But I've never said, well, I think I'll write a poem, and said, no, the poems come and I write them, you know. In my book, Some Gentle Moving Thing, and on the CD, the last poem is My Muse to Whom I Belong. I can't remember that one by heart. But it talks about how my muse gets me, sometimes by surprise. You know, I'll be so frustrated and realize that my muse is tiptoed up on me, come in disguise as frustration. You know, yeah. But I have to be there to kick it.
Right,
you know?
right,
Yeah.
and be willing to do it and go with it, and not. A lot of times when I'm writing, in the middle of the writing, I'll start editing myself. I mean, oh boy, here we go.
Right.
Because I'm already making this about me.
Right.
And the minute I let go and just start writing, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and do some editing. Because sometimes that voice, that nudge that says put something on paper, or at least some way memorialize this thought, this word, because in actually writing, the action of writing, I'm bringing out something from that mother tongue part of me. Mm-hmm. And it might even connect to something outside myself, something you or someone else. And I've always felt like at the foundation of everything was relationship. There's relationship with the Creator, and the Creator is in all of us, and then we relate to each other. And what a difference that makes, as opposed to being in relationship to whatever advertisements are out there and letting that be my driving force.
Right. Well, you know, what you were saying about the writing and the stopping and the editing, I did a workshop a couple of Saturdays ago with kids, young men who are in the juvenile system. And I shared with them that you write. I told the person who was doing the workshop for I needed some Play-Doh. And I gave each young man a Play-Doh and told them to make something. And they made things, you know, a car, cell phone, airplane. And then I told them I want you to write a short story. And look at that blank piece of paper, and the first words you put on that paper as the clay. Nobody's going to see it. You know, we edit as we write because we want it to come out. We think nobody's going to see it until you show it to them. And so your first drafts shouldn't be perfect. If they do, you know, something, you're fortunate, you know, but you get the intellect out of the way. And you come from your subconscious or your unconscious. And then once you got it on paper, you got the clay. Then you shape it, mold it, make it with your intellect. Gotcha, where you I learned that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Earl Hooks, who was chairman of the Department of Fisk, was my mentor. And he was more like a father figure than anything, a big brother or whatever, just a great teacher. Teachers, one thing I've learned about teachers, if you're in their presence, you're learning. They teach all the time, you know, you don't even know you're learning, you know. But I had written a poem about something that had happened about 20 years earlier that I hadn't even thought about. And I wrote this poem in very, very deep feelings. And one thing about a mentor like Earl Hooks, you can ask him anything. And I said, Earl Hooks, why did I write this poem with so much emotion? I hadn't even thought about this incident in 20 years. And he said, well, you know, it's like your mama makes a stew. You know, the first day stew's good, right? I said, yeah. He said, the second day is, okay, yeah. Second day, it is off the chain. Because the vegetables and the spices and all the ingredients have to blend. He said, experiences sometimes have to blend in your subconscious. Okay? Yeah. And so when I write, I'm coming from my subconscious. May I share that poem with you?
Yes, please.
Okay. The first job I got when I got out of the service was at this Middle Tennessee Mental Health Member. It was Central State Psychiatric Hospital. And I worked on a ward where there was a guy, I think the term then was mongoloid. It's something else now. But they don't developmentally past the age of 6 months. And they don't usually live to reach their teens. Well, there was this one guy there, and I don't remember his name. He was like 19 or 20, and 6 months no capacity. He weighed close to 200 pounds, skin the texture of a baby. He was just a big baby. We had to feed him pureed food. And everybody just loved him, you know. And then one night, he had trouble breathing. And I realize now they probably made the decision, you know, to let him go because I don't even remember a code or anything being called. Or everybody just stood around and watched him struggle to breathe. And then he made a little gurgling baby sound and he was gone. And that was, I wrote it about 20-some years later. And it's called, and I really feel this now, you know, it's called Last Few Minutes in a Nut House. And I'm not feeling for him, I'm feeling for us. As I lay asleep, nature paints a brand new dawn across the sky, silently, on tiptoe, so as not to disturb me. Somewhere out there, somebody's hungry. Some young mother curses her empty breast as she watches her child emaciate into a tiny Quasimodo. Somewhere, somebody's hungry. But as I lay asleep, elves with lights on their hats mine the black night skies in search of the dreams at the end of yesterday's rainbow, silently, on tiptoe, so as not to disturb me. Somewhere out there, somebody's scared. Somebody's doing wrong to finance dreams to be sent through blood vessels to brains and blot out everything but hot fudge sundaes with lots of smooth, creamy, sweet fudge. Somewhere, somebody's scared. But as I lay asleep, Azrael, the angel of death, with tip of wing, burst the bubble that was the illusion. And I slip away softly, silently, on tiptoe, so as not to disturb it. That's it. I mean, which is the nut house. Yeah.
I'm grateful for you and the fact that you found your mother tongue and that you work to keep that voice real.
It's by grace.
And that you're a teacher.
By grace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.